handing off a design file. We're going to talk about handing off an entirely new app, right, from start to finish, like all the flows that need to be done for an MVP. This is the kind of stuff that you might be doing in a client project, whereas another spot we're going to be diving into later is into a new feature that is getting iterated on. So whenever that's going to be happening, that's a little bit of a different handoff. We kind of want to show what happened before compared to what's happening now. And then we're going to dive into a QA handoff and specifically talking about how to like really call out QA stuff when somebody goes and develops something that you designed, being able to hit them with the right answers and right changes that need to be done. But all of this is centered around this idea that we're handing off files inside of Figma. And this has sort of changed recently because of dev mode. So with dev mode, we've got a whole bunch of new features for us to be able to work with, but the difficulty is each of those dev mode things at this moment require a specific license as if they were an editor inside of the design file. That might not be the case in the future, but what I am going to be doing today is trying to avoid dev mode for a while, and then we're going to go and get all of the stuff ready using the dev mode feature so you can kind of see the difference on what you can do with and without. The truth is the features definitely help, but if you are really organized, then you don't need to work with dev mode at all. So let's get into it and kind of show you how some of this stuff works. So this app was a mood tracker app that I designed through my TikTok channel, and yeah, it turned out really cool. There's basically the way that you can get into, you can have this little card slider up here. You're able to press this button to go get into the mood tracker input stage. And yeah, I rigged this all up into a prototype as well. So all this stuff is great. And actually, I've gotten a comment on my videos once, why would you even need to worry about red lines and handing off things properly if you've got a prototype? Well, the truth is developers are probably not going to look at your prototype unless you're very adamant about it. And even then, you probably don't need to be adamant about it because it's not worth the developer's time to look at it if you're doing this step right. So let's dig into it. The first step that I want to do, and I already kind of designed this way so you can kind of see it, where basically the flows are going to be a new row. So each flow starts with a dashboard or like the home screen, right? And then we're going to redline out to the next step. I did this inside of the prototype, so it's kind of already connected a little bit. So, a lot of the work is done already, but how you would do it if you were starting this from scratch is you would want to clean up the file first. So look for any duplicate screens. This looks like it's the mood log, so I'm probably going to bump that up to its own row. Yep. And then this is history. So, yeah, how do you get to that? That is through shouldn't there be? Oh yeah, that is through the mood journal. And if you click into that, you'll see this. You'll be able to switch over to the trends and the timeline view. You'll also be able to access your support network through this button, and then your balance wheel from here. And then there's affirmations too. So that's the last one. Okay, cool. So we've got all of our flows scoped out. Some of this is just like stuff that I made in another world. So I'm going to delete the things that aren't relevant. Yeah, we got our components up here, so that's good. And yeah, so this is the welcome screen. We've got our dashboard, homepage. And yeah, so we could do this in two different ways. You see how I've got three screens basically here. I've got one for this view, then you can scroll over and it gets to affirmations. You can scroll again and you'll get to the balance wheel call out on the dashboard. And that's okay to do. I probably will actually do that in another way instead of visualizing it through a prototype kind of thing. So I'm going to put this up here because this is the welcome. Then we've got dashboard. Now what I like to do is I like to actually pull out the my screens like this and label each flow. So we're going to call this dashboard. And then down here, we're going to call this mood log. And I'll get into the rest later. But yeah, so I'm going to delete these and just pull this out. You see, so this is kind of an easier way to visualize it for developers so that way they can see that it's a card slider and then we just need to scroll through it. The only trouble is we need to write a note for that. And, again, you could do this in different ways. Some people prefer to do comments like this, where they'll press the C key, drag out all into the section and cover that in a comment. This allows for communication and chat threads. The only trouble that I have is, like, when I'm designing, I'm working with other designers, I'm working with other developers, project managers, marketers, and in that, and then also clients too. And so in that, the communication value of like having a thread around a specific topic kind of goes out the window, because it's mixed in with the developer reaching out to you, the designer reaching out to you, and all of that. And so because of that, I actually like to do inside of Figma, I like to drop little nodes. So this is a card slider. Now that's really big. We can tone this down. I'm going to bump that like that. I'm going to put this in an auto layout. I'm going to make it like this and like this. Let's just like give it a fill. Again, like you don't need to actually design this. I'm just, making it so that it's easy to find for the developer. Then we're going to merge that into a component. We'll call this a note component. And yeah, then we're going to put inside of here, we're going to make it go fill out all the way. So as you go like this, you can kind of slide this around for this. Now, just make sure that like these are not next to your component list if you have this. In fact, I often will have a spot elsewhere in this file if I'm doing it inside of the file. That way the developers aren't confused on if this is a component that lives inside of the app or not. So, okay, cool. So I've got a note component. So this is a card slider. Daily check-in should only show until you actually complete your mood log for the day. Otherwise, it goes to the end of the card list. You can still add additional moods throughout the day. If you want. Perfect. Cool. So that's a really long-winded thing, and in fact, I should probably visualize some of this stuff. So I'm going to visualize when I've already completed a check-in. So that's going to move to the back. When you complete a mood log, the first log your mood card goes to the end of the card. It goes to the end of the card list. Yeah, okay, cool. Perfect. Then we're gonna just visualize this here as well. And this one needs an active state. So you logged, and let's just pull out like this guy right there. Yeah, you logged. Yeah, it might be cool to actually like grab this as a kind of a component. You made your log today. Perfect. 279. See, so as you're doing this, you're actually going to be cleaning up your designs just a little bit too. You see, like this was kind of locked into a box so that it wouldn't show down. But now you're also giving more directions to your developer to be able to give them guidance on like, hey, when you've already logged, here's what it is. Hopefully you've already scoped those states out before you jump into the handoff stage. But there's always a few things that come up that you're like, oh shit, I forgot to add that one thing. And this is really going to be helpful for that sort of stuff. I'm going to copy this style, and let's just put it right there. You've made your log for today. I'm going to make this filled. Go like that with it. We'll call this log again. We'll switch this button over to a ghost button. Perfect. Something about this is bothering me. Maybe it's that this should be like wide. Yeah, that feels better. I think maybe this gets the active state of that. Perfect. Yeah, log again. You know what? You could also go access the mood history as well. So I'm going to actually make this a button list. We'll call log again or view. Right? So you can log your mood again, or you can view the option. Perfect. This looks great. Okay. So you've made your log today. You were excited. You can log again or view the log. Perfect. All right. Off to the races. So I'll go clean up this note over here. Drop that. So we've got the check-in. Now you are going to be able to get notifications on the support network, and I've got that designed somewhere else, but I'll just redesign it really quick just to show you. And then we could say here, when someone from the support network has sent a message, this is the state. Believe, okay, I didn't actually make this the other state, so I'll call this notification, and this one's going to be false. I'll duplicate that and call it true. All right, we're moving. So over here on the true, we have a rectangle that's basically just going to be like a red dot. Like that. Perfect. I think I put white on there. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that looks really good. I think too, maybe we put an extended border on it as well. I don't like the red though, that's way too much. So maybe we'll go with that. Yeah, that feels really good. Cool. Okay. So now we come back over here. We're going to demo our support network. It's just a little bit small though, right? So let's head back. Oh yeah, that's only 9 pixels. Should be at least 16. It's not a tappable thing, right? The whole card itself is the tappable thing, but that feels like it's going to help a lot. Yeah, that looks really good. Okay, perfect. So we're on our way. We've now got a state for when we've got this. So we've got our flows kind of going a bit, right? And I like to do it like this, where there's about 500 pixels or so between the next row, right? So what I'll do is I'll group the whole row, move this guy down just to like rearrange, and I'll put it about, actually I think I like to do 1,000 just to really give it some extended space, so that way they can really clearly define the flows. The developers can when they come into this file. I'm gonna ungroup that, and then I'm gonna size this up a lot. That way it's easy to call out. So dashboard. Then the last thing that I like to do is rename my layers. So instead of just home, I'm going to do home dash dash what the stipulation is. And this stipulation is logged mood. Okay. Now this one is notification. Perfect. All right. That's it. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit more to do in the dashboard, but we'll just leave it there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this in a frame, but then I'm going to turn that frame into a section. You could also, instead of doing what I just did, you could grab all this and press Command or Control S. So instead of saving though, what it does is it wraps the whole thing in a section. And that's going to be really good because we are going to be defining our sections. You could potentially even at that point drop this dashboard title and just put it like this. It's still valuable to use those titles when you are working with multiple subflows or variants within a single flow. But yeah, for this one, we don't need to worry about that. So we're good here. We've got our dashboard. We're ready to go. So, cool. I'll go ahead and wrap another section right here. I haven't, in this app, I don't have the designs for like what the login screen looks like. So we'll just call this login, but know that that's the only login that we have for now. So yeah, okay. Now we're gonna duplicate this down, press enter, delete all of them, maybe copy a note in, right? We'll call this mood log. Perfect. So we'll drag our screens in. Just going to make sure that all of the states that we want the visualized to be actually visualized. Life ratings is not part of that, or actually no, it is part of that. Yep. So then we've got, yeah, we've got this. Oh, we don't have an active state for this guy right here. So, or a non-active state. So we'll grab this. We'll copy that. Copy that. Perfect. Okay. Okay. Gonna grab both of these, rename those to log dash dash feeling. Rename these to log dash dash reason. By the way, these I'm doing that mass rename by pressing Command or Control R as I'm scheduling, or as I'm selecting those. Then we've got log ratings, and we've got log summary, and log finished. Perfect. Log mood complete. Okay, we've got that already renamed, so that's perfect. Let's just make sure that there's no complexities around here. You know, you don't have to do note every single time, right? Like, it is so apparent how you do this, right? Click on this, and it goes, right? Now, the only other thing that you might want to sort through is, you know, you can select multiple, right? So like something like that would be nice to have in here, just to make sure, like, and like answer that one way or another. If it wasn't selecting multiple, like, then let them know that, hey, you can't select multiple. Just move on to the next step, right? Life ratings. Just make sure to update the little 8 out of 10 numbers as you change the range selector. Perfect. Good. Okay, here you could say notes is not required. Perfect. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Perfect. We've got our mood log flow set up as well. Okay. Next step that we have to do is the journal. I'll put those in a section. And what I'm going to do to save some time, so not being redundant here, is I'm going to just skip over putting these inside of a another, like, more notes. I'm not going to go add a bunch of notes on these because you kind of get the idea. We're going to get into the next segment of this value of like what I'm trying to bring you on this video. We're going to get into the next step that you want to touch on after you've got all your flows laid out, okay? So, going to just tidy this up a little bit, distribute it evenly, put it at 1,000 pixels on the block. Cool. We'll rename these, right? Journal, support, balance wheel, affirmations. Perfect. Okay. So we've got all of our stuff. Now, we could probably leave it here. As long as you've written a bunch of notes on everything, you know, and you've given enough clarity to the developer on what exactly it is, like your vision is for this, then you could probably leave it there. So let's just make sure that they know what exactly the interconnection is between each screen. Because see, so and basically to do that, we're going to work with red lines. So red lines doesn't need to be that complicated, right? You can literally just pull out the pin tool by pressing P and just make like lines, like hold shift so that they're hard lines like this. Just click, 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 right? It doesn't need to be that dramatic. But actually, like, here we go. This is already starting off with a great like reasoning here is that, look, I kind of put it to where this one mood journal goes down to the mood log, but that's not the right answer, right? The actual thing is going down to here. Just size up the width a little bit. I add a little bit of radius, just to, like, I don't know, make it feel a little designed, right? Again, you don't have to though. I'm gonna duplicate that. I'm gonna go to balance wheel. I'm gonna move balance wheel down to balance wheel. Affirmations. And you could probably rearrange this stuff just so it's a little bit cleaner. But, you know, I'm going to just leave it like it is. And then we got support network. Perfect. So now all you have to do is recolor these, right? So we'll just call this like red. Put this one to green. Blue. Pink. Let's go orange. There you go. Again, these don't need to be pretty. It's just to like let the developer know exactly where the thing goes when you have it. And this is pretty obvious, right? Like obviously tapping my balance wheel will take you to the my balance wheel. But where the real value of red lines is where does like the other stuff go, right? You know, if we're talking this button here, you could just make a line like this that goes out from it, but it might also be valuable to wrap that in a rectangle just to be like, hey, even though the icon size is, you know, smaller than this, I really want to make sure that we put some padding on this so that way it's really easy to tap, right? And so, you know, just like make a call out, right, where you've got that. Just put a call out here saying like, make sure tappable area is min 40 pixel by 40 pixel, right? Just something like that to like really call out the tappable area. Additionally, you know, my balance wheel is good, but then we've got affirmations. We've got browse versus recent. And I think that's a really great one to demo because browse will take you right to this affirmation screen, right? Actually, here, I made that in the worst way. So I'm gonna bring browse, boom, 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 boom. Okay. I'm gonna copy this style. All right. Perfect. But now where does recents go, right? Let's find out. So I'm going to double click, drag this in, drag this in, drag this in. And there's actually plugins inside of Figma that do this for you. But let's just do it our way, right? Because this is also not that hard. That's the thing that I don't like, or I didn't like some of the plugins because they give you too much features, and like I'm doing the rest of the handoff. I don't, you know, the plugins that I've found just don't do as good of a job of detailing the stuff that I actually find relevant. You know, like a developer can come in here and say, okay, this button's 190 by 60, right? They don't need me to like use a plugin to spec that out. But what they do need to do is what happens after the save button, right? Like tell me what that does, right? And that's the real juice that I think comes from doing it yourself on these red lines is you can pull that kind of information together manually knowing that the developer's never not going to lose that or have it lost in translation. Okay, cool. So now we have our system set up. Cool. We'll just have it go right to the affirmations. Perfect. So now we've kind of visualized exactly where this recent goes versus the browse, right? And so you'll want to do that on all of the screens that are relevant, right? Again, like, you don't have to do trends to trends, on this because it's a segment bar. Obviously, that's how this thing works, right? You also don't need to do this where tapping the whole card goes over here. But maybe if you do want to call that out one time so that it's not like, because maybe the developer goes and makes it where just this button is the thing that makes you go in instead of the whole card, right? So just like being super stupid simple, like over explaining yourself, that way nothing gets lost in the translation. Okay, so that is about it, right? Write your notes, organize everything, write your notes, make sure that everything's set up in components, and then annotate as much as you can, and then create some red lines to make sure that everything goes in the right place. Final step that you'll want to do is go into dev mode. And the way that you can mark stuff as ready for dev is like this. You click on a section. It has to be inside of a section. And then you click right there, that little button right there. Now, you can't do this from a frame itself, right? You can do this from a frame itself by pressing this button up here, and it'll just mark the frame as ready for dev. But the value of having a thing as ready for dev or not is in this exact situation, right? If this was ready for dev, but this wasn't, then the developer should know, and you should set up your cadence with the developer to say, hey, if you see anything over here, disregard it, because I might be sketching some things out to make sure, some new features come along that's not in development yet even. So just like, don't disregard this, just work over here. But then that brings up the next problem with this like ready for dev thing anyways, is really you need to keep things as clean as you can, because even if you have something like this where it's ready for dev over here but not here, the developer might go build this and then everybody's like, wait, what? No, that wasn't bought in yet. And why did you spend 3 days on that shit? Where we got other things we need to build. And that's really the trouble with development handoffs and where this is very risky, having something like this. So what I like to do is once you have something like this set up, don't work off of this at all. Go to another page and do, work in progress, and just do your sketches over here. Make sure that nothing in there is ready for dev, because once you have something in here that's ready for dev, it's going to be marked as such. You see, it's going to be shown up on this page's side over here. So you're going to really want to make sure that nothing in here is marked as ready for dev as you're building stuff out. Okay, so that's it. So that about covers most of the way that I do handoffs on my normal file. And honestly, I would say don't even step into dev mode and stress about anything that happens in there, because you could share this file with developers and they don't even need to be logged in or viewing it from dev mode to be able to work off of this file properly. So let me really quickly walk through at my old job, in my old startup that I used to work at, some handoff files that I did in there. So here's what I did on the handoff there. And you can see I did a lot of what I just walked through, right? I pull these things into sections, and then and that's because basically in this product that I was working on, there was two ways to customize. You could drop these little icons on the site, or you could highlight text and style the highlight that you made around that text. But the trouble was there was so many customization options that we needed a recently used library. And so this was the feature that we developed. Before, this thing was not here. It wasn't showing, and it just got into the positioning stuff. And so on this handoff, I had to do a deep dive on anchors, which was the icon side. And then I had to do another deep dive into the highlights. And I had to basically just spell it out. You could see that the structure was basically the same, right? Recently used in general. What does the animation stuff look like? Well, over on highlights, there is no animation recently used. Don't worry about that. So just don't even cover it. View all. What does view all look like on anchors? What does view all look like over on the highlights, right? So you could just see that, walk through the same cadence for the developer, and then anytime that there's extra stuff, just make sure that it calls it out. And then that way, as a developer, they're able to just scan this file really quickly and understand exactly what's being added and what's not, what isn't on one thing versus the other thing. And then there was, and usually I didn't do this on this file, but typically I would actually pull out a whole section where I would pull this in, and I would go in here and actually I would like show them next to each other. I would like fade this out and I would say like, this is what the old is as a reference, and then this is the new. And then I would say, hey, look, it's just going right here. Don't, just a quick little explanation to say, hey, what new is happening and where to pull it up on the file. So that's how I did it on a handoff iteration for a new feature, and that's cool. So now let's talk about a QA side, because QA is a big part of our job as designers too. Especially if you're working in a startup or at an agency or for clients, you're often going to find that people are, you as a designer, you're not going to have QA help. And even when you have QA help, the QA tech, it might not be really good at the UI or might not even understand how important one thing is over another on the design, and they might miss something. And so there's often times that you'll want to be stepping into QA pretty regularly to help people out. And so this is how I do my QA. So I take a screenshot of the current thing, and then I'll actually go and highlight specific areas that need fixing. Like in this case, the tappable area was too small on this side versus my actual design. So my actual designs had this where like the tappable area was like all the way out to here, and there was like 4 pixels off, and basically it made it where like the shrink was it got shrunk because it needed to like the accessibility deal, we had to make it taller for accessibility. So because of that, I had to call that out. I also called out the sizing of these, because over here the box needed to be bigger than the box that was happening over here too. And then here I broke it out even further, where there was between one list to the next, I called out that, hey, this is only 18 pixels, and this should be 48 pixels at least, right, on the breakdown. Same deal up here, right? Called out just very, very clean cut. This is what you did. This is what it should look like, right? And really highlight all the areas that you think might be affected. Same deal right here. Like there was only one issue with this, and it was that there was no padding right here. Same deal here. Can we align the top check for here? That way, when we go multi-align, it doesn't break. So just try to think of like your designs compared to it, and then be very diligent about these details, because these details are, you made those designs the way that you did for a reason. And when you're letting shit slide, slowly, it creeps up until it ends up being something that you never designed. That because it like slowly turns into this monster that lives separate from your designs. And if you're not careful and you're not hardcore of a stickler, then it's not going to get fixed. And then it'll get to the point where you get frustrated and you're like, yo, this looks completely different. And they're going to be like, why didn't you tell me 10 months ago? And so that's where the struggle is. So just, go in, grab screenshots, try to estimate it based on, the size. So like this was at 404, and I sized up my designs to that same size to make sure that I would have the same sizing, to make sure that, because I went like this, I hovered over the thing, because inside of responsive, things are always going to be changing a little bit. And so having a comparison, I basically just sized it exactly to that text up top. And I said, okay, this is a rough baseline. And I said, currently seems like it's 18 pixels. I don't know exactly what it is, but either way, it's way too fucking small compared to 48. So that's kind of the idea that you should take when you're doing QA. And that's it. There we go. That's how you hand out files, help developers move things along This is all important stuff, very important stuff. So get good at this, because if you get good at this, your designs will come to life the way you want them to, and everybody will love you and love the products that you're making much more.